So, with the wireless, yeah, but I think this works. So, anyhow, so it's not new. It was discussed a few times during this meeting, also a lot on IRC and on the forums. It's about the ideas we have for mods, for extensions to phpBB 3.1. So it's a bit harsh, but I mean, we have to be honest about it. The code base looks pretty much like this. It's not a bad thing in itself. I mean, everybody here knows spaghetti can be extremely tasty and wonderful, but yeah, it's also a mess. So that doesn't mean that we don't have a thriving modding scene for 3.0. We have. So we have to consider what tools do we offer for mod authors and how are they being adopted. And the thing is, the first we introduced in 3.0 are modules. Modules are plug and play, but they're also rather limited. They are only able to add pages and functions to the existing control centers. As a result, I would say very few mod authors actually understand the system and even fewer use it. So, nope, that doesn't do the trick. The other thing we have is plugins. Plugins are in the core, use their own API, also plug and play, can be used for search, for the capture, for caching, and so on. But even here, the functionality offered by the APIs is hugely, not well understood. It's not a uniform API, so it's very hard to get into these various plugin APIs. And even the APIs, like for captures, which offer a lot of functions, are not really used by our mod authors. So yeah, it's also a frowning phase. Well, the next thing, we already have hooks. These hooks alter the behavior of the software almost completely, but they are mainly intended for wrapping by other applications, which means that they are not really intended to extend the application phpBB, but rather to use it within some other context. So I would say with the small exception of the Joomla bridge, I don't think anybody is using these hooks as they are. So, okay, so what are we actually using for extending phpBB at the moment? That's mods. The mod team made a great presentation about them already. But we have to be honest again, it's patch files. These mods patch the core, but they are used. It's the thing the mod authors like best. So I wouldn't even say that these are automatically frowning phases, because there are advantages to patch files. One of them is, they're extremely powerful. You can do anything with patch files. They are simple, everybody understands them, it's straightforward, just, put your own code in and it does what you expect. As a result, they are used. They are also, well documented with the modx format. Everybody knows how to use them, what to do with them. They can be, to a degree, automatically installed. So it seems actually like they work. The other thing is the frowning phase. We are, patching the core means that we no longer have any uniform code base, which means that maintenance becomes a pain, which in turn means that many board admins don't even update their boards. They don't maintain them, because it's just a running system and it's hard to do anything about it. Then the thing is, one mod works fine. You can add meatballs to your pasta. It's fantastic. But then continue adding shrimp and so on. So in the end, yeah. So I would say with a lot of mods, we usually end up here. So and again, 3.1 we want to change with in 3.1. So yeah, we introduce hooks in the system in the sense it's not a new concept like Drupal does it, for instance, meaning our code calls, our code calls these registered modules at certain points, and these might even call registered modules on their own, and so on and so on. The results are then pooled together, and the code does something with them, which means that they actually alter the code and not just replace it. So to make this work, we have to replace the old hook system, which wasn't used because it was limited and also quite complex to use at all. It was object-oriented, which is fine, But at the same time, it was a bit daunting to first-time users. So I would say we learned from Drupal, hooks have to be fun. It has to be easy to use them, straightforward. They have to do what you expect. And at the same time, it has to be possible to resolve conflicts, to add them in your own code, to place them in your own code, and just work with them. So what do we do? I mean, so our new hooks are essentially, auto magic. So it's exactly like Drupal for those who have worked with it. If you have a method in your mod following the naming scheme, phpBB will just discover it and use it and call your method at the appropriate places. All the results are then pooled together in an array merge, meaning you can replace and override results from earlier mods, from other hooks, and so on. And yeah, it's not rocket science, it just works. It's an easy concept, it's a tried concept, and we want to introduce it in 3.1. Essentially, as I've said, it's not rocket science because that's the core of the whole hook system. I mean, at first, all mods implementing a certain hook are collected. That's a cached list, which is maintained by the software automatically. And then it's just, there's just a loop over it. Every mod gets called, all results get merged together in the array merge, and then the core does something. So I don't know, anybody has any questions to this point? I know I'm being too fast and also a bit broken up. Sorry about that. So maybe just take a small break here or no questions whatsoever.
When you add a hook, what does that mean? You drop in files?
You mean add a hook in?
Yeah, like if you're a user who is just wanting to add a mod that is a hook.
Well, if a mod exposes a hook on its own, it's also auto magic. It's just you invoke the hook, and by that point, it just, the hook logic says, okay, I don't know this hook, I'll create it for you. So.
I mean more like, how about this? Let me ask it a different way. If a mod author is writing a mod that they want to push, it doesn't require any codification at all. That's the whole point.
Yes. On both sides. It's auto magic to use hooks, it's also auto magic to add hooks.
Does the hook accept the existing return value as well as whatever parameters were sent originally, like the event that call hook, for example?
Well, that depends on the actual hook, because on its own, that's just a method invocation. The core code has to give it some semantics, and these semantics will be different from one hook to the other.
Would that always include the return value to date so far in the
Usually, yes. Usually it's an array which is, there are two styles to do this. Pass an object or a reference, and then, every single hook can just work on the same data. That depends. A hook injecting HTML, for instance, probably wouldn't use a reference, but something working with post-row definitely would.
So this isn't exactly representative of the final code, this is just sort of...
This is essentially the code as it is in the Git repository at the moment.
So right now it doesn't pass the context?
Oh, it does, because you see it's just, it depends.
What he means is the return val variable is not actually given in the next
No,
line.
but that depends on the hook, because if the hook would use a reference, like a reference to an array, for instance, post row, then all the hooks would work on the same data.
It can replace an existing reference, but it can't get a value of an existing reference and look at it and alter it, but it can replace it.
Yeah, well, that's hook semantics. There will be hooks in the system which allow that by having a reference as argument. There will be others which just pool the data. So yeah, so that's the idea. And the other end, a mod for name my mod could just use the hook page start like this, and it would replace the actual displayed site name, yourdomain.com or something, to hello world. That actually works already. So that's the auto magic part of it. But as we brushed the subject already. There are many different types of hooks how this can be used. So it can be used to actually add some output. It can be used to add some data. can also be used to register some handler, meaning validation handler, or just a callback, which should be called in certain situations. It can be used as an, well, event system light, if you may, by reacting to changes or insertions into the database. Can be used to alter queries, at least if I use the DBAL, and so on. So essentially, this can be very powerful, but only if the hooks are well placed throughout the system. And that's the most important part. We have opened an RFC form on Area 51, where users can, mod authors can post their ideas, where hooks should be placed, and how they should work. And well, because the insertion of a hook is a rather small thing, I think we can add hooks even in point releases, and so provide a good interface for many mod authors. I don't think, I mean, we really need the feedback. I don't think we can get to the point when no patch files are required anymore, but I think we can go much further when we're able to do so in 3.0. And maybe in 3.2 or so, we might even manage to get rid of patch files, at least for most modifications. So, yeah.
Will modules in the future be rejected in favor of using hooks if they could have been used? Like if somebody modifies code where a hook has been placed, they will be rejected and they'd be advised to use the hook instead?
That's something for a mod team to answer in the end. There was a debate about that already in the case of capture plugins, accepting modifications which could be done as a plugin but weren't done as a plugin. In the end, I think it's at the moment it's still okay to do so. I don't know whether the mod team wants to change that policy in the future. So anyhow, community, oh, David?
No, we're not going to deny your mod if we're not using hooks. I mean, as it is now, there are code injection points, and they're not always used. But that doesn't mean that there's a different way to do it.
So the other thing is, I mean, well, we have to get the input from the community, and so all team members should point the users, go to Area 51, post your ideas, comment on the existing ideas, make this work. Because it's really hard to imagine all points where something might work. It's only the mod authors themselves can do that. And I mean, to give an idea how the system could be used is, well, we say, the big issue about search engine optimized URLs, so-called pretty URLs, it's probably one of the most frequent feature requests. And we probably won't have them in 3.1, but a small idea how they could be done with hooks is quite easy. We add one registration hooks, which essentially adds routers like we have them in Symfony. And so registers which script should be called for a certain given pretty URL. And doing that and consistently applied hook for rewriting internal URLs already posted means that we actually could roll out search engine friendly, at least so-called search engine friendly URLs without patching the core. So that's the idea, and that's the direction I want to take, and I think it will work. Yeah. So I think that's already it. Okay. Silence. Douglas?
I have a question. There are no other questions. I could offer some comments on the hooks. If there's a microphone, I could borrow.
Yeah, it's so take the stage.